Hello and welcome back to my channel. Yesterday night actually, I went to watch the movie Weapons. It has been my most anticipated cinematic release of the year, my most anticipated horror movie of the year, my most anticipated movie of the year. And so I entered with a lot of expectations. I entered expecting to love it. I entered expecting this to become my movie of the year. And well, after watching the movie yesterday, I have a couple of thoughts. I will tell you ultimately what I rated it at the end, but I also have thoughts about the movie as a whole. The first thing I want to do is give a non spoiler review. The movie was amazingly done. It's by the makers of Barbarian. I loved Barbarian, loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed the horror aspect of it. I enjoyed the storytelling technique. I enjoyed how the story was told, although we will get more into that in the spoiler portion of this. I enjoyed the cinematography was amazing, the sound was amazing. There was so much good to be said about this movie. I really enjoyed this movie. It's a movie I would recommend for any horror lover. You should definitely check this movie out. I loved it. I had my own little qualms about the movie, which we will get into more. But without giving a lot of spoilers, I want to see what I can actually say without, because I literally took a notepad. I take like I really like write my thoughts because I knew I couldn't take this whole bingo card into the cinema because that would have been too distracting for me, and I couldn't. I wanted something that was like more handy that I could just like do the like write my notes in. Um, and looking at my notes, I want to see if there's anything I can say without giving spoilers for the people who have not yet watched the movie who just want to see the non spoilers first. Um, I would say so expect if you've watched the trailer, then expect every scene in the trailer is in the movie. It's expect just carve out time. If you need to go to the bathroom first, go to the bathroom first because the movie is kind of long. Um, then what I would say is expect to be scared. It's a horror movie, so expect jump scares. And that's all I want to say without giving spoilers away. Like, go if you watch the trailer, if you want something, like an activity to do, the bingo card is available. This is made from the trailer, so every it's just like the trailer but in card form, so you can like have fun ticking and like as you watch it if you want something. Um, yeah, so that's all I can say for the non spoilers. Definitely check it out. It's a good movie. But then when you finish checking it out, come back here and then we can really get into the movie. So see you when you finish watching the movie. If you're here, that means you've watched Weapons and we can talk about spoilers now. Okay, let's get into it. There's a lot I want to talk about with this movie. Speaking about the storytelling style, I loved the fact that they broke the story up in the different parts. I will say though, there's a moment that it kind of became a lot because I think I thought it was going to start like Justine, and then it went to Asher, I believe his name was, and then it was somebody else. But I kept at the beginning, I was like, I didn't know going to call. I thought they would get back to Justine, but they didn't. It was just like a new character. At a certain point, I was like, oh, there's another character again. The one critique I would give though is that I know this was not if there was one character's POV that I would have liked to see, honestly, it was the villain. I want to know. I have more questions about her, like especially what her motivations were. Like in her mind, what are her motivations here? Because and we'll talk about that more as I talk about the whole movie. But in short, just let me put a pin in that. What were her motivations and how did she get here? How did she get her powers? I'd have liked to know more of that. And why did she particularly choose? I would like to know more. And that will so put a pin in that. And so my only thing is talking about the story and all the characters that were shown was I wish we'd gotten one of the villain. That's one. And we'll talk about why more soon. The next thing I wrote was the introduction of the villain and my thoughts on that. I didn't love it. I didn't love him because watching this movie, I thought it was going to go. I thought this movie was going to go in a lot of different ways. It's positioned the movie as where are our children? These children have gone missing. What happened to them? So for the first portion of this movie, especially because we are in Justine's part for so long, and then we get into Asha's part for so long, and a lot of those portions of it are like about these characters, about their grief and like dealing with, especially with the father, like dealing with his grief, the loss of Matthew, trying to find Matthew. With Justine, it's like being called a witch and being falsely accused. So I'm wondering, like, do they know more? Is there more into this? Like, what happened to these children? And the what we are getting now in this moment when I'm watching it, I'm still thinking like this is so, like what happened to the children. Although the movie kind of starts to stray from that question of where are the children. There's a huge portion of time in this movie where that question kind of just fits into the background of like where are the children. Like obviously it still hangs in the air, but it's now more about the interpersonal relationships. Like especially in Justine, it's like okay, her relationship with the policeman, and then the policeman's too, like his own storyline with his wife and Asher, and trying to, like, I think he's the first one that we really start to say, okay, we're still remembering, like, where are the children, but that where are the children storyline kind of gets lost for me, at least in a bit in the story. And again, I think we can just start tying certain things together, because I want to talk about the dream sequences. The dream sequences, which are two specifically, the one that I think Justine, I believe her name is, has, where she walks in and then she sees the boy, raise his head with like the clown like makeup. I'm assuming how I took it was that that is like some foreshadowing of, like what is to come. And I take it to me to be like a clue of what happened to the children that the characters have, because they both have dreams, Justine and Asher. And those dream sequences, Justine sees the boy like with the clown makeup, which obviously we know now is because of the woman at the end who kind of walks in. The villain walks in with that like clown makeup look on her face, clown like makeup on her face. Then Asher has his own dream, which we will talk about separately. So we'll talk about that in a second bit. But Asher has his own dream where he sees the AR-15. And people can then take that to be like a clue of, okay, these children have become weaponized. They are like the weapons. So that can be made to believe that, that is what is going on. But up until that point, we have still not really seen the villain. Like we don't really know, because I think the first time we even really see this villain, because I think we kind of see a flash of it in Justine's dream, like when she wakes up and she's like screaming in bed. I think we see kind of like a flash of that. We see another flash of it where the tweaker is like is in the, which we'll talk about why she. Let me not get ahead of myself. But when we finally introduce the villain as a speaking character, I think it kind of happens kind of like midway through the film. In a very like she just kind of like walks in. I think it's like your 2 o'clock appointment is here, and then she walks in, and then this is the big bad of the movie, and she's kind of introduced in such a like, oh, and like, okay, I guess it's kind of weird, and then that kind of starts kicking off the. I think for me, and this is one of my biggest criticisms of the movie, especially it's not really a criticism of the movie. I think it's a criticism of what I thought I was walking into. I didn't realize how supernatural this particular movie was going to be. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Barbarian. In that movie, the villain, like what happens, the woman, it's like she gets there as a result of what I understand to be years and years of incest, and like more biological, it's more of a biological result that gets her to where she is, the villain in that movie, the villain. The mama, I guess, in Barbarians. In this one, I didn't expect it to be so witchcraft. I didn't expect it to be so this is a supernatural, like this is witchcraft that is now here. I thought it was going to be again more of like a grounded in reality kind of thing, where it's more biological or more like okay within. I didn't just expect witchcraft. I think I kind of didn't. If I had known it was leaning more into fantasy kind of like things, then maybe I would have better prepared myself. Because even when I was still thinking of what happened to the children, like why did they all run, I was thinking of it in like logical ways, like in things that could have happened plausibly, like without witchcraft as the answer. Like I was like, okay, maybe it was, did they all have a plan? Did Justine do something? Why would they all run at this exact time? And then we start seeing that Asha is getting bullied as well. So that's kind of adding to this, like, okay, did Asha have something to do with it? Again, up until when we see the witchcraft, I'm like, okay, like what is going on? What is going on? So when we now see the villain and then it becomes like a supernatural story, I can't say I loved it. I really can't say I loved it. I think that was one of the things that really drew me, like, because I was like, oh, I mean, I could never have predicted if I didn't know this was a supernatural witchcraft thing. I couldn't have predicted, like, in the story of what happened to these children, where are our children, I couldn't have possibly thought witchcraft, because I was really thinking in the realm of possibility of our world. I'm not saying that witchcraft this is not a, like, does witchcraft exist or doesn't, like, this is none of that. This is just like for the story, I didn't think it was going to be so supernatural. Um so maybe that's my fault. The second thing I wanted to talk about, I don't know if the second, but speaking of those nightmares, I want to talk about the AR-15. There have been so many theories about the AR-15, and my friends and I have been talking. And I feel so. But the biggest one, I think, because we also had to go online and like see, right, and like what are people saying about this. And the biggest one is that, oh, the AR-15 is supposed to show, like, it's like the clue to Asher that like the children have been weaponized. Like AR-15 is a weapon. So 217, that was the moment that they got weaponized. My thing and why I was asking about, like, I wish I knew we had a character insight into the villain, is what exactly was her intention? Because how I understood this movie was that she took the children more so for their life force than to weaponize them. They became inadvertent weapons at the end when they are attacking her, right? But that is after the boy, Alex, I believe the child, cracks the stick and then turns the children against her. That's when they become weaponized against the villain. But from the villain's perspective, what I gather is that she wanted these children for their life force. She was a parasite. Like, because throughout the movie there was, the parasites on the board. There was the parasite thing that the couple is watching. So I kept on going, okay, parasite, how is this going to be like connect to the story at the end? And what I understood or what I gathered after thinking about the movie and like watching it till the ending was, okay, I guess she was parasitic. She was sucking on the life of not only the children, but I guess the people, like even the Alex, I believe is his name, Alex's parents. I guess she was sucking on their life force, which is why they became like shells at the end of this movie. Because she drained them, and because at the end of the movie, of course, she's also like, getting more revived. Her hair is growing. She's running a bit faster than when we first see her. She's basically just on the bed with looking like a corpse almost. But again, from what I understand from her POV, she's not weaponizing these children. That was not her intention. Her intention was to get them as sources for life, like to feed on their life force. So the dream then revealing the AR-15 as weapons, this then would be more so a foreshadowing, I guess, just of the movie's ending than it is a clue to Asha about what happens to his children. But I guess we can say both. We can say that the dream is foreshadowing for what happens at the end of the movie. So I guess, because I really thought another thing about the AR-15 was when I saw it. Obviously, for anybody watching this movie that is also cognizant of the news, you know that the AR-15 in a movie about children, it obviously already calls to mind mass shootings. Like there is no way your mind wouldn't think of mass shootings. So when I saw the gun, I thought, okay, is this going to be a story about mass shootings? That's what I thought. But then, and in that moment too, because I don't know if at this point the villain is revealed, and I don't know if it's at this point too we know about the witchcraft of this woman. But once I started seeing the witchcraft story, what I started to now take it as at that moment, especially when we start going into Alex's storyline. I hope Alex is the name of the child because that's why I just keep calling Alex. But when we go into Alex's storyline and we see, that he's getting bullied, I thought that it was like, oh, I'd been getting bullied. I find out that this woman who is living with me has these witchy powers. So I use her powers to weaponize the children against each other, like my bullies against each other. But now things have gone too far, and now I've done this thing against my whole class, and I need to rectify that. I thought that was the story that it was going to be telling, which I don't know. That's where my mind was going. So at the end, when it's not that kind of story, and it's essentially a story of a woman who wants to just suck on the life of the young children, and and then the young boy at the end cracks it and turns it on her, and then that's another story. It just didn't feel as satisfying to me. I was just like, okay, I don't know, because again, we have this big AR-15 in the air, and I'm like, so if it is not really, because I'm sure that you can't tell me that the writers and the directors didn't think that this would call into mind mass shootings, especially in the context of this. They had to have thought about that. So I'm just trying to see how that could have even played into the movie, because the movie at the end doesn't really give any commentary on mass shootings at all. So just having that kind of image in the mind, I don't know, that was just very interesting for me, and I thought, oh, that AR-15 was kind of very, very like okay, like it's one of the most debated things between me and my friends, and like just what we really had questions about was that AR-15. Um, then the death scenes were very graphic. Like obviously, the scene with the principal bashing his husband's head was very graphic. Like the repeated, oh my god, that was so graphic. The principal's death too, where he gets hit by the car and then his insides are like on the ground. That was very graphic. The villain's death is very graphic with all the children, basically ripping her apart, was very, very graphic. I would also just say that I guess this movie too had moments where I was like, okay, I guess this was just done for like a visual like horror thing. Because, for example, the black goo that the principal throws up on his husband or partner before he bashes his head in, I'm like, that doesn't happen again from to my memory. I don't think any other person throws up black goo or even has like black goo in them. So I was like, okay, I guess that's just for like a visual, like, okay, he's been possessed. But I was like, okay, but why? That happened only once and then it just never happened again. Sometimes it's still because I really watch movies with like I'm really locked in. I'm very like, okay, everything here means something. This should probably mean so when that black goo was just for the husband that he throws up on him and then that it just never happens again in the movie. I'm like, what was that black goo? Okay. Because I thought that to be like the indicator to people that like I don't know what I thought it to be, but I thought there'd be more to be. But okay. But I guess it was just for the visual element. Another thing I was going to say was, you know how again with his husband he's really bashing his head in. When it gets to Justine, he's just kind of like tricking her out, I believe. And like yeah, when she's on the ground, before Asha wakes up and like gets him off of her, he's just kind of like choking her. And I'm like, you would think that like he would start to bash her head in, right? It's the thing I talk about with horror movies sometimes when I'm watching and I'm like, this person definitely has plot armor. Because the way you bashed your husband's head in so quickly, and now your actual target, you're only just kind of like choking. Well, he's choking her with the intention to kill, yes, but he could really have started bashing her head into. And I'm like, I think you were protected by plot armor. Of course, when she's even in the supermarket and then she's being chased and just while she's at the door and then Asha comes and like boots into him, plot armor, those types of things are like, I don't know, I'm just so aware of them in films where I'm like, okay, which is again, if you've not watched my Dangerous Animals review the movie, watch that. That is one of the things I really loved about that movie was that like this type of things didn't really happen in that movie, like these types of like very convenient salvations. I'm just aware of them in horror movies, so I was like, oh, so I peeped that in this movie. Another thing that was just kind of like okay for me was, why was the villain in the forest? The tweaker is in the forest and then he's walking and then he sees her like or whatever, like trying to. It's almost giving it chapter two or like it's the movie. Like Pennywise suddenly just kind of like in the forest, but I'm like, why is she in the forest? Like again, it seemed like this was done for like a jump scare or like a storytelling like just tactic, like something visual to just show like we're still in a horror movie and like to keep, I guess, foreshadowing this woman or just like bringing her up in different ways without it being, because it almost feels like, I don't know what I think happened. I think the filmmaker like finished writing the script or like had seen the whole movie and said, we don't see enough of this villain until we don't see this villain until like the middle of the film, and there's no like she will come in so abruptly, which she still does as far as I'm concerned in this movie. So let's find ways to inject her in other places before we finally see her. And so we have her in randomly like jump scare Justine in the dream, and then we randomly have her in the forest. And then, but it's not, because again, this doesn't end up being like a she's a witch, but it doesn't seem like she's a vampire. Like I mean that to mean that she's not like a person that can just disappear and reappear. It doesn't seem like she's just torment. Like I'm going to just come and because I don't know. This is one of those things. Sometimes maybe it's just me over it because I was like I didn't. That wasn't satisfying to me. I feel like I like when things come together, and it just felt like again this was like an afterthought of, oh, let's just include her in different ways before we finally see her, because I don't think we see her till like the middle of the movie, and that's what it gave. So I was like, okay, because why is she randomly in the forest? I don't know. Okay, um because that forest one wasn't a dream sequence. Like I can see Justine's, okay, it was a dream sequence, so she kind of like woke up. But this one, it's not. He wasn't dreaming, the tweaker. So he's just. Are you just randomly in the forest? Is that a figment of his imagination? But then that doesn't seem like it. I don't know. Um, and why would he just imagine her? Because he hasn't seen her before. I don't know. So that's little things like this. So I think. Do I have any other notes I wanted to talk to you about before I give my final like thoughts? Wait. Looking at the bingo card. Um, is there any relevance to the time 217? If somebody knows, please let me know. Apart from the fact that that was the time when they walk out of the house, was there something specific about the time 217 that has gone over my head? Please let me know. Um, mm, yeah, I saw all of these moments in the movie. The bell was wrong, I guess. Was just part of the ritual. Okay, and yeah, I think yeah, LOL moment. There were a couple of LOL moments in the movie. I think the tweaker had a lot of comedic moments. There was a moment that I found funny personally, which was when I think it was so random, but I think Asha asked the guy like, "Oh, why haven't I seen that file or something?" And the other person goes like, "Because we don't report to you." And I don't know, it was so simple, but I found it funny just how dry that line was delivered. But I just found it so funny. Um, and then obviously like the tweaker had some funny moments, and the end where the woman is getting chased by the kids was kind of, he looks comedic. Um, but yeah, overall, I think I can give my final thoughts now. Overall, though, I entered this movie expecting it to be my movie of the year. I fully entered this movie expecting it to be the best thing I would see this year, expecting it to be a 5 out of 5 for me. Ultimately, I wouldn't say I give it a 5 out of 5. I give it a 7 out of 10, which is a 3.5 on Letterboxd. out of 5. It's a good movie. It's just that it wasn't. It was very long. I feel like the runtime kind of was long. It was a long film, and I'm not against long films when I feel like the time was earned. But there are moments here that I felt like I don't know if this runtime was earned. We could have cut some things down. I'm not going to hold you. We could have. Then two, all the things I've already said that I feel like some things felt like, especially the villain. I didn't know I was going for a supernatural film. Had I known that, I would have better prepared because again, Barbarian was more biological in her deformity at the end, more so than and in what is happening to this mama woman. Here, it's more. I couldn't have predicted witchcraft in all of the promo and press for weapons. I did. If they had said this is a supernatural film or expect witchcraft, then maybe I would have been better prepared. But not knowing that this was a movie about supernatural, like she's a witch, like an actual witch that has witch power. I don't know. Maybe if I had done that going into the movie, that would have affected my score. Ultimately, and even her witchcraft, I don't know. I've already talked at length about all the things I had and all the questions I had. Ultimately, the movie was good. I really enjoyed it. I would say maybe my high expectation was maybe why it felt a little more disappointing. If this is a movie that I entered expecting nothing, like no expectations whatsoever at all, maybe this would have gotten a 9 from me. No, that's not true. It would have gotten an 8. But I think because of the expectations that I had on the movie too, actually, I don't think I'm even rating this because of my expectations. I'm rating because of the movie. Like I've taken out points. I think I took them because of things I said. Like it's like three things that removed the score for, which I've already talked about. Um, and that's why I give it a 7. But ultimately, for a movie that I thought would be my movie of the year, this isn't my movie of the year. I love the movie. It's a good movie. I hope this doesn't make it sound like I didn't love Weapons because I did. It's a really good film. I would recommend it to anybody who wants to like a good horror movie. If you want to go and check it out in cinemas, please do. I just personally didn't love it the way that I thought I would love it. That's what I'm trying to say. And that is disappointing, but that is life. Sometimes that's how it is. Um, Sometimes you love things more than you expect to, like I did with the movie Dangerous Animals, or especially the movie Together that I watched last week. Amazing film. Um, but then there are some that don't really meet your expectations, and that's okay. That's just the power of cinema. And again, it's all very subjective. Somebody else probably saw this and thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, and I'm very happy for the people who did. It wasn't specifically that for me. Yeah, I think with that, that's what I have to say about the movie Weapons. It was a good movie though, and yeah, I think there's nothing else I have to say. I've exhausted all my talking points, and I can't wait to see you in the next movie discussion that we have. As always, all bingo cards, all future movie bingo cards are available on the vdkfilmclub.substack.com. You can get all the bingo cards there. They're a fun way of, especially when you're at home, especially with streaming, if you have that person that's always like on their phone, give them this as an activity. Both of you can do it. Like, okay, you know what? Either on our phones, it's all on the VDK Film Club .substack.com. There's like a digital version you can have on your phone and like bingo away that way, or you can print it out for them. But then that can be a shared activity instead of the person just coding through Instagram. This can be an activity that they do that's still pertaining to the movie. So all the bingo cards are available on the Substack. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next time I see you, have a lovely day. Bye.